There was a lot of water went into the foundation and was pumped away. A lot of it was recycled. So it's pigeons that took over that place. There's loads of them. Yeah. So I don't know what they'll do with it in the end. No idea.
It's looking quite hopeful, I think, in terms of what they're trying.
Yeah.
But
you keep seeing bits of hope, don't you?
Yeah.
It's such a big thing to do. I mean, it's not like an ordinary warehouse or anything. I mean, it was purpose built to carry the weight of ice and things. So everything's, you know, heavily built, and the rooms were actually tank rooms and not wet floors as such. I mean, it was a tank, a brine tank with all the ice molds and everything in it. It was never a floor. The hatches over the top sort of made the floor, but it was, so it's a different sort of a building to, you know, like a warehouse or anything like that. Totally different. Of course, the walls were made thicker and to carry the weight of everything, the RSJs and the weight of the ice. So it's a pretty solid building, you know.
And the machinery needs to be kept as it is, doesn't it? That's why it's a listed building, because of the machinery that's inside. So
yeah,
you need to work around that at the same time.
I don't know how to do that. No idea. I mean, to get one of those compressors out, you have to knock a hole in the wall, you know, to get them out. I think eventually they ought to keep one of the compressors and sort of stick it somewhere on the docks as a, you know, a reminder of this type of factory it was. I mean, there aren't anything compressors like that anymore. There were Cheney hose compressors. Each one would make about 12-15 tons of ice an hour, so they were big compressors. Yeah, of course we used to work on those as fitters and what have you. Yeah. We'll be tied you if you did it wrong. Yeah. Of course things did go wrong. I can remember one night on shift, we were running, I think we had quite a lot of ice, about 4 or 5 machines. I think, not sure we had the 5th machine on, but there was always a shift engineer and his assistant, or shift greaser you used to call him, on through the night and at all times while we were running. And I was on shift one night and the assistant greaser came through. He said, "Right," he said, "there's smoke coming off the top of one of the compressor cylinders." Oh God. So went dashing through there. It had got hot, it had overheated and it looked like it was on fire. It's a quick shutdown. Because what happens if valves inside the compressor cylinders got damaged, it would recycle the gas, so it would overheat. It would recycle the ammonia, so it would actually overheat. You'd be compressing already compressed gas, if you like, and it would overheat. So this cylinder had overheated. Bit of a worry that. Why hadn't I spotted it sooner? And it had happened quite suddenly, actually, because you had to take temperatures of the cylinders and everything like that all through the night. And I know I'd taken the readings, and I checked in the book and they were all right at the time I'd taken them, but it had suddenly happened quite suddenly. So then you've got to write a full report in the log what's happened, you know. So I dreaded going back next, seeing the chief engineer of the time, a chap called Ron McBain then. But things happened, that was the way it was. We caught it in time and that was it. But that's the way these things happened. Yeah. That was why there was a shift engineer on all night, you know, to deal with things. Of course I often got called out as the chief engineer who was always on call, you know, all the time. And sometimes the phone would go 3 o'clock in the morning. "We've got a bad leak, got an ammonia leak." Because our leaks were a lot worse than they used to get from Bird's Eye. I used to get in the paper, Bird's Eyes, you know, ammonia leaks. And I used to think, nothing like the leaks we get, we keep it quiet. And you go down there and, you know, there'd be an ammonia leak, but you just had to deal with it. You just had to transfer the ammonia from where it was leaking to somewhere else if that was what you had to do, or, and try and repair the leak or do something.
It would be quite a pungent
Oh yeah,
smell,
it was a
ammonia.
bad, bad thing when you did.
Do you have breathing apparatus and things?
Yeah, oh yeah, we did. We used to have to use, you know, practice with that. The shift engineer did, to practice with the breathing apparatus now and again. Oh yeah, and there was quite a few gas masks, you know, smaller ones around. Yeah. Oh yeah, I can remember one particular day in Fishstock Road. There was a leak in. Do you know Fishstock Road, the front of the factory? Well, to get to the extension building, you came out the engineer's door and engine room door and into another one, and there was a leak in the other building there. And we went in to try and deal with it, and strangely enough, you kind of get used to it, and you could go into an ammonia area and sort of cope with it. And I can remember coming out the door for a breather, and people were walking past and they couldn't walk past because it was that bad in the street. And I thought, so fresh air out here, you know. But we did. You did kind of get used to it. In fact, I mean, there was guys that were really didn't seem to bother them. You know, a chap called Pete Nielsen, a fitter. If there was a leak, he seemed to be able to just walk in and do it. But it wasn't. It's not a poison. It's not an accumulative poison, ammonia. But if you stay in it doesn't do you a lot of good. It burns moist tissue and that, and so you couldn't live in it or anything. But you did get used to. You kind of got used to it. I think. I mean, there was always a bit of a smell of ammonia in the engine room. I think. Nowadays, health and safety probably wouldn't allow it because, I don't know, but we just dealt with it. You had to. It wasn't much fun though when you got a leak, especially when you couldn't find out where it was coming from. That's the way it was.
What was health and safety like then in the ice factory? Was it?
Well, it developed as health and safety itself kind of developed, I think. We went on various courses and things like that, you know. And I think making machinery safe when it was going to be worked on, we had a system of removing the fuses. The shift engine, the fitter couldn't work on anything until he reported to the shift engineer. The shift engineer would see the electrician to get the fuses removed, and then when the fuses were removed, it was logged in the electrician's book and the shift engineer's book, and he would say to the fitter, "Yeah, it's okay, the fuses are out, you can go work on it." That kind of thing, you know. And lifting gear was inspected, you know, rope blocks and things like that for lifting heavy machinery. That was all inspected at regular intervals. Strange thing was that sometimes in earlier years they would save some of the lifting gear for the insurance man to inspect and not use it. Now that was bad. Bit naughty, but no, shouldn't have said that really. That was before my time. So.
Was it quite noisy there then in the factory?
Yeah, in the engine room with 4 machines going off, but it was quite noisy. Yeah. Yeah, it was.
Was there a uniform at the ice factory, or?
No, only overalls. The factory would provide overalls and donkey jackets and things like that. Can't remember whether you paid for them or not. Don't think so. Can't remember now. I think extra ones like donkey jackets probably did. But it was generally overalls for the fitters. But yeah, they used to have overalls, and the shift engineers had white overalls and things like that.
Because you see, I've seen a few photos with, there seems to be the ice company like printed on things, be it barrels or an overall or things like that. It seems to be all over the place.
Yeah.
I didn't know if there was a proper uniform that people wore.
Well, they were the issues, they were the issues, uniform. Yeah. But it was a well-run factory, particularly in the early years when Mr. Fleming with his bowler hat and the aristocrat. As he ordered lots of spare machinery for the compressors and other things, and the engineer's store was absolutely full of spares, etc. And it was for many years we never had to buy anything, much. He'd already stocked up everything, and of course normal nuts and bolts and things we did, but the main compressors had spares, for many years. Eventually we had to start buying stuff in, but so it was well run. Yeah.
How long was he there for then, Fleming? When did?
Well, it was not long after I was, I think I can't remember. It was there for the whole of my apprenticeship, but I think it wasn't many years after that he left, and a chap called Sir Rogers, he took over. So he was in his later final years when I started.
How would you address him from...
Sir, I think. Mr. Fleming. Mr. Fleming.
Yeah, Mr. Fleming.
Yeah. And it was a doff your hat thing. Yeah. And it's strange. I mean, you always doffed your hat, and that's the way it was in those days anyway, in the early years. And even when I took over the chief engineer's job, there was still some of the old hands would come in the office and do the same. Strange. So that's it. Yeah. But he would make sure. I can remember him saying to me, "You'll get every penny you're entitled to, but not a penny more." I remember him saying that, and that's the way he ran it. He also made sure that the fitters and engineers and electricians were paid a little bit more than the rate on the docks. In his day, he did that, but that disappeared eventually. But that's the way it was run in those days.
So it was quite a respected place to work then. If people take pride in working at the factory.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, in his day, I did. Because it's the only factory of its kind. Well, it's the biggest factory of its kind in the world, I think. I don't know, in its day. Yeah. But you didn't sort of realise that at the time. It was just a place you worked, I suppose. Well, we occasionally had breakdowns. I can remember one particular scare we had. We'd taken a filter out of one particular system for cleaning. Part of the system, water was pumped out of the dock for condensing ammonia to rate about 3,000 gallons a minute through the system and back into the docks. You can imagine that's a lot of water flowing, and the filter that was in this system was removed for cleaning, and I wanted it back the same night, but we couldn't manage to get it back. And you could still run the plant without the filter in, but it should have been in. And there were some contractors working in the area at the same time. I can't remember what they were doing, painters I think, something. And they dropped a plank of wood into a part of the system where the water flowed. And during the night, this plank of wood managed to get itself over where the filter should be and block the flow of the water. So 3,000 gallons of water a minute was flowing where it shouldn't be. And it stopped the factory. I remember the phone call. The shift engineer said, "We're in trouble." He said, "There's water all over the place." It's okay, I'm coming down. We found out what it was. By then it shut down and stopped things. But it did cause a bit of a problem with electrics in the area. Anyway, they wanted ice on the Saturday morning. That was on a Friday night, I think. But we got it going again, and survived. But, it was a bit of a fright. really was, to see that the water, you know, the amount of water that was going where it shouldn't have been going, but dock water as well.
I think, yeah, mention.
saying a man used to come and collect the eels from the dock
Oh
window.
yeah.
Can you remember that? Or?
Yeah, when we cleaned the filter out of these same particular pumps, there was often eels in the filters, you know. Yeah.
And did you ever get to take fish home from the docks, or did you?
Yeah, you did. Yeah, you got some. Another sort of amusing thing down there. Sometimes the merchants or somebody would complain about the quality of ice. You know, the merchants especially on a hot day, like that, because it melted. But anyway, you would I'd get a call and say, "What's the matter with this ice? It's terrible." I said, "Okay, I'll come and have a look." You know, and I'd go down to the fish merchant concern and have a look at it. So, "Oh, we'll send you a couple of extra barrels," you know, and you get them to sort it out that way, it was no problem. And for 1 minute he'd be screaming and shouting about the quality of ice and, you know, the plumbing ice factory and all that. And the next minute he'd be sat in his office having a yarn and he'd come back with a parcel of fish. That's the way it was down there. It's a different world altogether. Yeah, so... Yeah, they did used to complain occasionally, but it was hot. I mean, hot weather. It was obviously used to melt quicker. It's just, so well, what do you expect? It's sunshine. So.
There was a storeroom as well in the factory. Was there a storeroom for the ice? Or
There was an ice store. Well, there were two actually. But as years went on, there was quite, you know, it was a backup store. But as the ice production was less, because you didn't really need it, so the ice stores were closed down. But yeah, there was at one time. Yeah. One ran off the main system and one was entirely separate compressor system of its own. But, yeah.
Were there any special days or anything that you can remember in your time there?
Special days?
Like a day that stands out for any reason?
Well, that one I've just
days when
said.
Things broke.
When the water flowed.
Yes.
I don't know really. I can't really think of any particular days.
No celebrations or anything in the...
No, I suppose I can remember the day we shut down, you know.
Yeah.
I remember going and bringing one of the old fitters who was still alive down to the day we shut down. A chap called Harold Taylor, who was a fitter when I was apprentice, you know, and he did a lot of the work on the compressors. I sort of worked with him as an apprentice. He came down. But, I can't think of anything in particular. It'll come to me when you've gone.
Have you got any questions there?
No, I think.
Tried to think of things other people have mentioned because it's nice to get a different view on the same thing.
Yeah, yeah. Because everybody's job would see it in a different light, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you're there at different times, you see things in a different light, don't you?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Can you remember there being any bookies or anything? People taking bets for. Someone mentioned. I don't know where they were, but they said, "Oh, you always knew where to go to place a bet on something." And
oh, that would be on the docks. I didn't know that. No.
Not in the factory.
Yeah. Well, maybe if something went on that I didn't know about. You know.
And there was only the odd female member of office staff, I think, wasn't there? There wasn't many women
not in the factory days. No, there were more when the exchange took over, I think. So, Yeah, there weren't many in the ice factory days.
We've heard from a lady who used to like to walk past outside because the blokes would be on the gantry giving them whistles. It was a regular
Yeah,
parade.
yeah.
But,
Yeah.
Yeah, I used to bike from Healing. I lived at Healing when I was apprentice. Used to cycle from Healing to the factory. Yeah.
oh, it's a good cycle ride.
It was, yeah. But you did in those days. It was all bikes. I mean, nearly everybody went to work on a bike in those days. Yeah. Of course, in the ice factory, the only people with a car would be, well, the chief engineer had a car and the manager had a car. I think that's about the only vehicles, you know. Can't think of any others at that time. But I was saying, we had some good engineers, good mechanics. I remember a mechanic called Charlie Catchpole, and the manager at the time had a left-hand drive sports car, and he wanted it to be normal right-hand drive, and the mechanic did the whole job for him. He changed it from left to right-hand drive. I can't remember the name of the sports car, but it was a fantastic thing in those days. I don't remember what it was. You know.
Yeah, that's about it. Isn't it?
Yeah.
Are you alright?
Yeah. No, that's lovely, thank you.
Just touch that.